Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy, a podcast that looks at the inspiration, intention, action, and choices that you can make to bring more joy into your life, into the world, and into other people's lives. This is your host, Paula Jenkins. Welcome to episode 223, and this week's episode of 3 Joyful Things. On Tuesday of this week, I had the honor of having Laura Lai join me. She is the podcaster behind Quietly Bohemian, and it was such a treat to have her on the show. If you haven't gone back and listened, you can find it at episode 222. You can go to the website or look back in your podcast player and tune in there. We have a really fun discussion about how she's inspired by the band Depeche Mode, which is a Brit synth pop band similar to my beloved OMD. And we talk a lot about how the lyrics have inspired her to choose the titles for each of her podcast episodes and how she really enjoys the lyrics, especially those that are written by songwriter Martin Gore, who also sings in the band. I loved getting to have this conversation so much because, as you know, I really love to talk about bands and lyrics, and it was such a treat a while back for both of these, but to have Danny Wood on of New Kids on the Block to talk about how he chose to write a song dedicated to his mother called Hold On. Oh, it's beautiful. And I also got to talk to Fred LeBlanc of Cowboy Mouth about some of his lyrics, and it's just so much fun to dive into it. So I could really relate on a deep level with Laura when she was talking about how this band, Depeche Mode, inspires her, and that's how she's choosing her own podcast titles. So before we get into unpacking the 3 joyful things, a couple of quick updates. So these brief podcast episodes started out as my newsletter where I unpack the inspiration, intention, and action from an aha moment that I got from a guest or from a solo cast that I've done. So if you want to read these instead of listen, you are welcome to join the newsletter, and you can find the link to that on the homepage of Jumpstart Your Joy. And if you came here from the newsletter and you're like, oh my gosh, there's more of this, and you want to subscribe, you can find Jumpstart Your Joy if you go to Spotify, which is an app that you can download to your phone. That's available on both iPhone and Android, any device. You can also download and listen on Apple Podcasts, which comes on every iPhone. Or if you have an Android phone, you could download Google Podcasts. Subscribing to podcasts is free, and you just have to download the app and find the show that you want to listen to. So thank you for tuning in and subscribing either way, because these episodes, of course, are the top secret, not on the blog, not on the website yet, episodes that I'm releasing. So let's jump right in. The thing that I really find inspiring about this, especially as we're in the new year, I've been listening to a lot of podcast episodes that I've been loading up to my Spotify playlist, which is called Plan Your Year. There's a lot of podcast chatter, a lot of blog posts right now, all out there about how you can set goals and crush your goals for 2020. There's a lot of that very forward-facing growth and a lot of chatter out there about how you can be bigger and better and more. I think the thing that, as I was re-listening to Laura's episode and the things that she talked about, and this really, really deeply inspired me, is it's around the idea of foundation, which of course is my word of the year. And so what I see Laura doing, especially with her show, and taking this very intentional approach of using song titles of a band that she has loved for so many years and lifting those as the inspiration for each one of her podcast episodes, and then allowing the content of those lyrics and the things that she's deeply inspired to be layered in with the thing that she's going to talk about that week. It struck me that instead of being push, find the new thing, find the new music, listen to the latest song, read the latest self-help book, instead of really pushing to look forward and find the brand new thing that's going to change our lives or whatever that I feel like we're so drawn to. And that's the messaging that's out this time of year. Laura slows down. And what she taps into is something that has inspired her for a better part of her whole life. And I think there's this really beautiful juxtaposition of, as you're sitting here and laying a foundation for your year, how can you look back and take inspiration from the things that you have loved for many years and that have been a foundation for you as you have grown and changed, and you see new things with each of these lyrics. If it's a song, how can you take that and act on that as the stepping stone for the next thing, instead of feeling like you have to recreate or create something brand new in this year? What can you look back on, and what can in your past can inform you to create a brand new foundation to move forward on? So that's the first thing that I really found inspiring, and such a differentiator from some of the really loud messaging that's going on in the self-help space right this minute. But then we can get into the inspiration, intention, and action that I think we could all take from this last week's episode. And that came about at the very end. If you have not yet listened, go back, check out the interview with Laura. It's episode 222. You can just go back in your podcasting app or go to the website, jumpstartyourjoy.com/episode 222. You'll find it there. And listen to her answer to the question that I ask everybody at the very end, which is, what are 3 things that you can think of to jumpstart joy in the world, in your life, or in other people's lives? And one of the ones that she answered was this.
In my life, jumpstarting joy, I have to say listening to music, don't I? And when I say that, I mean actually listening to music. So not just having it on in the background. I remember when I was a kid, my older brother, Saturday mornings, he would listen to music. He would stand in the middle of the room. So I guess the speaker's equidistant. So that's, the best way to enjoy the music. And he would just stand there for an hour or two and listen to music. And I used to do that, and I've stopped doing it. But listening to music and really getting into that definitely is a joyful thing for me. As an introvert, alone time is a joy for me. And I think that is really important, because once you allow yourself the time to take a step back and recharge your batteries, it allows, I think, other things to become more joyful in your life as well. So recharging your batteries is joyful in itself, but it allows that joy to kind of diffuse through.
And what I love about this and found so inspiring is that she talks about how her brother slowed down and takes the time to really listen to the music. This is probably music he loves. Of course, I'm layering in my own interpretation. It's probably songs he just can't get enough of. It's the stuff you hit on replay. The stuff that, like a song, I don't know if anybody else does this, but that you just want to live in. There's a few of those for me, and we can probably all share what they are, and maybe I'll put up an Instagram post about my favorite songs. But really the inspiration is, how can you allow yourself to really sink into something that you love and just be in it? And I think so that's the inspiration for this week, is that moment that I can just see her brother listening so intently to this music. And the intention here is to allow yourself to really be present for something that brings you joy. Really be present. Laura makes mention of not listening to the music in the background, but letting it be in the moment with you. And I think that's the intention of how, as we look at setting the foundation for our year this year, how can we set part of it as being the intention to being very present for the things that bring us joy? Easier said than done, but I think that's the intention here. And the action that you and I can take, and I did this last night driving home from one of my clients, and I said to myself, I'm going to take inspiration from this thing that Laura talked about, and I cranked up some of my favorite songs ever, a couple from U2, which is Streets Have No Name, and Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And then I jumped over to listen to some other favorites by the Shins, Girl Sailor, and New Slang, and just cranked that music and sang my heart out. And it really allowed the moment to carry me away. Because what I found, and maybe you'll find this too, and you can tell me about it, was that when I was really present in that music, I could remember being back in college and some of the times that we would listen to that Joshua Tree by U2, out drinking beers on an open patio and hanging out with our friends. I was back there in a moment. And if I had just put that music on in the background, I would not have noticed those details. So my invitation to you for this next week is the action to take is really allow yourself to sink in and be truly present with something that has inspired you. Music's a great one because I think we all have our favorite songs. I do know some people, though, are very much inspired by the written word. So if that's you, go find a poem or maybe a part of a book. I know Penelope Fitzgerald's an amazing author who writes these gorgeous short stories. And I just want to climb in those stories and live in that moment. Or maybe there's a poem. There's one called The Eagle by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And it's really short, but like, oh, I want to live in that moment. So go find one of those and just let yourself sink into it. And then give yourself the space to write what you're feeling. Notice what's going on, like really be in the moment. So that's that. And thank you so much for joining me for this week's 3 joyful things. I would love to hear if you loved this or if you had an aha moment. You could email me at jumpstartyourjoy@gmail.com and I'll reply. Or if you want to tag me, Jumpstart Your Joy on Instagram, if there's something that you, I don't know, end up taking a picture of, you want to share it that way, I would love to hear from you and see what's going on. So thanks so much. And we'll be back next week with an interview with Casey Jordan of Steady She Grows podcast. I can't wait to share that one with you. And until then, I hope that your days are filled with so much joy.